Hello and welcome, everybody. Welcome to the No Name Music Cast. My name's Tim, and this is
Joy.
And we at the No Name Music Cast are well rested this week. We took last week off after the Hog episode, our first guest we've ever had on the podcast. We decided we couldn't better that for then. So, we were so impressed with Hog joining us that we decided to take a week off.
And I mean, he was going on his trip to Prague anyway. He was out relaxing. Me and Tim didn't go to Prague, but we thought we should at least relax.
Exactly. So we took a week off. I mean, there'll be no interruption in service for you for the listeners, but we often will record maybe a couple in a week and take a week off, or record a lot in a bunch and then take some time off. So here we are, rested and ready to podcast for you again.
Yay!
Well, I've got a little bit of music news at the top of the show. Music news. So news came out this week that Daft Punk have announced that they're going to do a Random Access Memories reissue. And the interesting thing about that is not just like a cash grab to sell records or cassette tapes or whatever the trendy format is of the time. They're actually going to put unreleased music on it.
Oh, so do they just have like a few different songs they're just going to add on it?
Yeah, it's actually 40 minutes, 30 minutes, 40 minutes of music that's never been heard. Here it is, 35 minutes. There we go, somewhere in the middle of that. 35 minutes of unreleased music. So there are a couple of demo versions. There was one that was only available on a Japanese issue of the album. And there's just a couple of outtakes and a couple of bits that are unfinished. So if you're a big Daft Punk fan, or if you just enjoy Random Access Memories, this would be a very interesting album to listen to.
Have they put out music in a while?
No, last year they split, and one of the robots is now going under his real name, and he's releasing orchestral music or something like that. But the funny thing about the Random Access Memories, it's 10 years old.
Yeah, it's pretty old. I mean, that's not that old, but it doesn't feel like 10 years, but it's just kind of random that this is now. Are they doing it like a 10-year anniversary or something?
Yeah, it's the 10-year anniversary reissue, but it sort of blows my mind that was 10 years ago, because it seems like it was about 2 minutes ago.
I know, that's what's weird. It's weird when you think about time, because it was a while ago, but you're like, it just doesn't feel that way.
Exactly.
Like your brain knows, but your heart doesn't.
That's very deep, Joy, for a Thursday night.
Oh, wow. Yeah, we'll put that on the T-shirts. But the other thing that bothers me about time, I've talked about how the weirdest thing for me to get in my brain is the concept of like looking at something by light years. It's when you want to talk about the fact that time isn't actually linear. That also breaks my brain.
Yeah, and as I said to you before, when I look up into the sky and realize that we're just a rock floating in the infinite vacuum of space, I mean, it just hurts your head.
We went pretty deep this episode. Going to be a weird one, everyone. Just buckle up.
Well, I suppose when you start talking about Daft Punk and robots, I mean, anything can happen.
It is true. So the one who's doing the orchestra music, can you see his face? Does he show his face now?
I think so. I haven't seen a photograph. It's Thomas Bangalter or whatever his name is. But I mean, there are pictures on the internet of them without their robot costumes. But I think since the band has broken up, I think that they would probably appear out of character, as it were, now.
He just picks up a new mask for his new job.
Exactly. Maybe it's a different kind of robot. Who can say?
I was just curious. I mean, I've seen actual pictures of them. It's not that hard to find. A simple Google will show you. I was just wondering, because that was kind of their thing. Nobody ever seeing them.
Exactly. But there we go. Okay, so I do have another music news item, and this is very interesting. Now, back in the 60s, there was a rivalry with the Rolling Stones and the Beatles. Now, in real life, there wasn't a rivalry because they were friends. They were playing the same clubs. They were all around the same people.
Yeah.
But in the eyes of the fan community, it seemed to be you were Team Beatles or you were Team Rolling Stones. But the interesting thing is that Rolling Stones are releasing a new album. Now, this new album has got some tracks which feature Charlie Watts. And as you know, we lost Charlie Watts just a few years ago. The interesting thing is that Paul McCartney and Ringo Starr are going to play on this album. So you're going to have a Beatles Rolling Stone collaboration on this album.
That is actually really cool, because that would be an album I would have to have. That's so interesting. So are they I'm assuming, are they going to put, like, did they make any of the music? Are they just performing on it? Do you have any details?
Well, from what I've heard, I think the Beatles are only performing on it.
Yeah.
I don't think they've co-written. I think Paul has already done his vocals and his bass parts. I don't think Ringo has done his parts yet. But the way that music is recorded these days, nobody's ever in the studio together. You can just drop in whatever bits you like.
Yeah.
But yeah, the thought of having Mick and Keith and then Paul and Ringo all on the same track, I don't think that's ever happened before.
No, but it's so cool. I mean, if it did, it never made it out to the light of day because I feel like me and Tim would know about it. But now I really want to hear it just because it'll be interesting to hear how the differences in their, like the way they play and what you know about each artist and how it comes together.
Exactly. Yeah. I don't think there's a title or a track list or anything at this point. It's just like articles. And I read this on Variety, and I think Rolling Stone posted a similar article as well. I just thought it was really fascinating. These gentlemen are at the, they're older. They're at the end of their careers, really. And then there they are. They're going to collaborate on a new album. It's fantastic.
They got bored. It's a Tuesday, Tim. We got money,
Exactly. Well, there we go. Well, that's our little brief music news section. Now, I just wanted to give a streaming update. Now, as you know, there has been a sea change for me in the way that I've been consuming my music. And it all started when I got a fancy new iPhone with loads of storage, and I tried to load my MP3 files to it, and it just turned into a massive calamity.
I mean, it was a tale as old as time, really.
Exactly. So I went through a number of streaming services. I discounted Apple Music because the interface was clunky and the files were massive. Amazon Music is terrible. I don't care what anyone says. It's just terrible. I couldn't get on with it. So I settled on Spotify, and I've been playing with it now for almost 2 months. I think I'll be coming up to month 3. Mm-hmm. And as of now, I really love it. But it's funny. I hate it. I hate that it cheapens music. I hate that it takes away the specialness of people buying music and being invested in it. But at the same time, it is so amazingly brilliant. I wish I had got involved with it a long time ago.
So what's really interesting to me about Spotify and the reason? So I use YouTube Music sometimes because I have YouTube Premium already, but not that often. Mostly just like if I'm throwing something up like on my TV where I stream because I have a Chromecast, a Google Chromecast. But when I'm listening at work or something like that, I always have Spotify playing in the background. And there's one unique reason why I prefer Spotify over everything else. And it's probably not even remotely what you would think. Do you know what it is, Tim? You can listen to podcasts and music on the same page. A lot of times, like if I want to listen to a podcast, like I have to go to Google Podcasts separate of YouTube Music, whereas Spotify, I can listen to them both together.
Yeah, and I think you can mix playlists with podcasts and with music. Yeah, so I think it's very unique in that respect. Now, I should also clarify, I have not abandoned my massive CD collection because I love my compact discs. I continue to buy compact discs almost daily, it seems. And when I'm at home and I'm relaxing on the sofa, I'm listening to my CDs 9 times out of 10. And I've got like flash drives plugged into the TV downstairs, and I've got a flash drive plugged into the one in the kitchen. And I'm listening to my digital collection, something that I've honed over years and years. They have flash drives in with gigs and gigs of music, which I've curated and volume leveled and all this kind of stuff. That really hasn't stopped. I'm still enjoying that. But anything I'm doing on my phone is Spotify. So when I'm at work, I'm listening to that. When I'm in the car, I'm listening to that. When I go on my walks, I'm listening to that. So it has replaced everything that goes on my phone. But the bulk of my digital listening does take place on my phone. So I'm probably listening to it at least 8 hours a day, sometimes more.
So I feel like, though, for those who don't know, Tim at one point I don't want to say accidentally, did it purposely, but he regrets it now. He got rid of all of his CDs at one point, and I don't think he'll ever make that mistake again.
No, absolutely not. It was the early 2000s. I was a little low on cash, and I wanted a Gibson Les Paul. So there was still money to be made in selling CDs. I sold all of my CDs. I ripped them all into my computer. And then with the money from that, I bought a Gibson Les Paul. I had that Les Paul about 3 or 4 months. It was heavier than the sun. And I did 3 gigs over a weekend, and by Sunday I ended up in the emergency room or the A&E, depending where you are, with a back problem.
It gets worse and worse.
Yeah. I then sold the Les Paul, and then I bought a Music Man guitar with it, which I still have. And from that day onwards, I regretted selling my massive CD collection. So when I got back into buying physical music again, I decided that CD was my format of choice. And of course, I will never, ever part with them. I will say I briefly took a foray into vinyl, and I still have 50, 60 maybe vinyl records, but I've almost sold or given away most of them because the format stopped bringing me joy. It was expensive. Mm-hmm. The flipping the record over thing, I became a little bit annoying. But more than anything, when you purchase new records, the quality is not good. So you spend $50 on a record, $40, $50 on a record, and it's warped, and it's crackly, and it's the holes pressed off center.
My Guardians of the Galaxy, the volume 2, was literally, it looked like a wave. And that was an expensive album because for those who don't know, Tim knows, the Guardians of the Galaxy albums are great, even if you don't like the movies. The music's wonderful. Yeah. And when I got it, the volume 2, because it was like, I think it was like 3 different, like vinyls. This volume 2 one was literally just a wave. I'd spent $40 on that thing for it to not, it sounded like wonky as no other. And I was like, I actually inherited a few of Tim's Donna Summer and the Village People vinyls because he was like, do you want these? And I was like, sure. So they're sitting over there by my record player.
So, I mean, you get like a nice record player and you get a nicely pressed record. Mm-hmm. It sounds fabulous. And I have a copy of Daft Punk's Random Access Memories, actually, on a double album set. And to my ears, it probably even sounds better than the CD copy I have. But I don't know. It's just like you invest a lot of money in your turntable and your stylus and all this kind of stuff. And you buy these records and they just... The quality is not good.
And they're just so expensive now because everybody got obsessed with them. The hipsters of the world decided they wanted to all go back to vinyl. I will say the 2 records that I think sound amazing the 3 that I own. And I know this is very cliche, but all of the ones that we have the Flash Gordon soundtrack, of course. And then Charlie has a bunch of Pink Floyd ones that sound great because of the older copies. I have a few Dolly Parton originals that are nice. And it's going to sound really random, but I actually like the way the Dirty Dancing soundtrack sounds because it's all 60s kind of 50s music. And so it has a nice sound on the record player.
Yeah, and sometimes you get that. I mean, I said I've got I don't think the title off the top of my head, but I've got some older ones, really older pressings, and they do sound really good.
Yeah, especially the Pink Floyd one. Charlie went through an eBay bidding war on those and found them, and they sound really cool. And they're in good condition, so he lucked out.
Well, there we are. The other thing to consider is that most modern press records come from a digital master anyway. But there you go. That's a story.
We'll be here all week, Tim.
But there we are. Anyhow, that's my streaming music update because I'm sure everybody has been sitting on the edge of their seat. Can't wait to hear what was going on in that respect.
It's their daily soap opera.
Okay, so let's get into this week's topic. Now, this week is a game for joy of sorts. So I've noticed, and I'm sure all of our listeners have noticed, that Joy often references Glee. Like you'll talk about Napalm Death or Gwar or, I don't know, Sepultura, metal band.
Okay.
Death or something. And then she'll say, oh, yeah, in an episode of Glee, blah, 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 blah happened.
It's true.
So I still have not seen Glee, but I went online and found a list of songs that Glee have covered.
Okay.
So I have a whole big list of songs from Glee. And this is the episode. So I'm going to read out one of these songs, go through this list and read out these songs. And Joy has to tell me a story. Now, it can be any kind of story. It doesn't matter what kind of story it is. But the rule is she is not allowed to talk about Glee.
Okay. I mean, that's
so
fair.
It could be a memory, a friend, a party you once went to, a concert, a CD you had. It can be anything. But you are unable to talk about Glee.
Oh, that's going to be so hard.
This might be an episode of complete silence, and it might be that fabled lyric game we did where we had to re-record it from scratch. Who can say?
I was really worried when Tim said a game. I was like, oh no, please don't put me. I was like, he's going to do some name the song type thing, and I'm just going to stare at him for the episode. Because I swear to you, if you put me on the spot like that, actually, before we get into it, I will make sure this is not a silent episode. I was writing Tim the other day. I was watching, there's a show called Shazam, and it's like a name the song type show, and you have to beat the Shazam, remember the old little app? Mm-hmm. And Charlie was like, you and Tim should go on there. And I know we could do it because I would be useful for a lot of the newer music. Tim could be totally killing it on this 60s, 70s, 80s kind of rock music. We would be great. Second, we get on there, Tim. Do you know what the category would be? It'd be like polka from 1942.
Yeah, or something, or something. I don't know, hip hop and dance from 2022.
That would be Tim's luck. And somehow they'd be like, and you can't use joy. And he'd be like, well, we're out. Good luck. He just walks off the stage. All right. What's my first song?
Okay. So your first song, as I said, it can be any story that comes to mind, anything, but
okay.
but nothing to do with Glee. All right. So your first one is I've Had the Time of My Life, which is Bill Medley and Jennifer Warnes. And of course, that comes from Dirty Dancing. Okay.
So this is hard because I'm just going to say it. I can imagine every one of the Glee ones Tim said. As soon as he said it, I'm like, I don't even know what episode that was and when that happened. But Dirty Dancing, I do have something. So my older sister's favorite movie growing up was Dirty Dancing. I have seen it probably more than any rational human should. But I think about this now, and I'm going to get Tim's opinion. You know, the whole don't put baby in a quarter, da-da-da-da-da scene or whatever. And the whole thing about, don't stifle her, let her live her life. Her dad was doing nothing wrong. She was 17 years old, and I don't know how old Patrick Swayze's character was, but he was probably 29. Can we talk about how, they really should have been putting baby in the corner and saying, this is a bad idea.
Yeah, that sounds... You see, I've never really thought about the inappropriateness of the age there, but you're probably right. Instead of putting baby in a corner, they should have sent that guy away and they never come back and calling the cops.
Well, and in the dad's defense, the whole thing with the girl where they think he's the one that got that girl pregnant and all that stuff. We won't get into the details of it, but it does look really bad from the dad's perspective that his 17-year-old daughter is running out, not telling him where they're going, hiding, sneaking around, carrying watermelons down into places she should. And so I keep seeing on Facebook and stuff, people going, no, wait. Why were we all telling her dad not to put baby in a corner? She should have stayed in the corner. Because it's true, though.
Yeah, I think you're right. Maybe we need to do a podcast where we go into detail of film plots.
I would enjoy that. Like I said, my new favorite game though to do is anytime you watch a movie, just look in the reflection and see if there's a boom mic. If you count the amount of boom mics get left in reflections on doors and mirrors, so many, Tim, headlights.
Yeah, I think in modern cinema, not so much because you can take it out digitally very easily, but certainly 70s, 80s, 90s, yes. Reflections in mirrors, boom mics, reflections in glasses. It was harder to take that out. So often it would get left in.
Anyway, that's my game. That's my story. Where was it? I Had the Time of Life. Was that the one you picked?
Yeah, that's correct.
I forgot all of what song it was, but I've definitely heard that soundtrack 1,000 times. It's one of my favorites.
Okay. All right. Well, good deal. All right. So let's move on to another song. Again, from Glee that you're not allowed to mention about the Glee episode. This is Matthew Wilder's Break My Stride.
Oh, I don't even remember that being in Glee. I'm trying to think of a song. I mean, as soon as you said it, all I thought was, ain't nothing gonna break my stride. Whoa, I can't think of a song per se. I mean, I love that song, but was he a one-hit wonder or did he have other music?
I think as far as I know, I've looked into him before. I think he was a one-hit wonder, or if he had other singles, they certainly didn't chart at all. But I think he went into songwriting and music production. And there was something the other day I was listening to, and it was like produced by or written by Matthew Wilder. And I thought, is that the same one? And then I looked into it and it was.
Huh. Yeah, that's the only thing I can think of when I think of that song is like, I mean, I love that song. It's probably been on like every radio station since the beginning of time and used in 1,000 movies. But I would not know what Matthew Wilder looked like if he walked past me on the street.
No, and in fact, if you play it on Spotify, the album cover is of the single, and it doesn't even have his face on it. It's some kind of like circus mannequin thing laying on its face. Spotify
is going to be on the next bingo card for anyone. And if they're trying to do a drinking game, Tim's going to put them in a coma. All right. I don't really have much more to say besides I don't know what Matthew Wilder looks like. And if he wants to come on the podcast and tell us about his other music, come on, we'll have you.
Yeah, I mean, perhaps anytime you like. You know, we've had Hog on here. I mean, we started high, so we'll take anyone.
Hog's probably like, was that a compliment or an insult? I'm not sure.
Well, it was a compliment saying we started with a high bar, and I mean, you can't go any higher than that once you've had Hog.
See, look, perfect, Tim. Exactly. All right, what's our next song?
Okay, so this is Catherine Hudson, Katy Perry, and this is the song "Raw."
I think when I think of this song, I actually think of her Super Bowl performance, when she was on the Lion. It was Lion, right? And like the iconic, like her, like she's basically like holding the reins and like yelling it. I thought that was one of the best use of like the actual song. And because you're like in a big sports arena, so you got to go larger than life, right? Because that's how you're going to sell it. But then it's also kind of like, you know, you're going to hear me roar, kind of like sports, kind of pump people up. I thought that was a genius use. But also, whoever made that lion was super cool the way they did it, because it was gold, right?
It was gold, and then the people that were moving it were dressed in black suits. So the way it was lit, I mean, if you look close enough, you could see how it was done. But from certain angles, it looked like that lion was completely moving itself. I think I looked into it; it was built by a special effects company.
So what's interesting about that is I don't know if you've ever seen like some shows on Broadway, but Broadway has a very interesting way of doing the Lion King. So it's people in the costumes with the animals over them, right? And a lot of it kind of like a puppetry type thing. But in the scene where Mufasa's, where the dad dies, Mufasa dies, and he knocks him over, you know, and he gets stampeded on. Well, there's a stampede, and it's the hyenas, and they stampede over him. I think it's hyenas, whatever it is that stampedes over him. The way they set it up on Broadway is really interesting. It's kind of like a stair. And so, like, the lion falls, and then it's like a stair, and it's the same. It's almost like kind of like a skewer between each of the animals, kind of holding them up, and then it's a stair, and it rotates. Like, do you get what I'm saying? Like, it goes up and down, and that's how they created the effect of a stampede on the actual stage. And so, when you're saying that's kind of cool, because I'm sure it was like a special effects company that does that kind of stuff too. But Broadway does a lot of stuff like that, especially with the animals, like you're talking about, with the people kind of controlling it, but it looks like it's an animal.
Yeah, I always wished I saw Little Shop of Horrors on Broadway. Hannah saw it. I didn't see it.
Little Shop
and
of
apparently when the plant comes out and says, "Feed me, Seymour," apparently it was spectacular. And I've seen a photograph of it. And I've been to like an amateur production at the Wolfert House in Woodville, which was good. But I mean, when you see what they had on Broadway, it really looked fantastic.
I've seen Chicago at the Wolfert House. On Broadway itself, I've seen Beauty and the Beast, The Lion King, Phantom of the Opera, and Hairspray. My favorite, and I've seen a few off Broadway, like I saw Wicked and, you know, where they travel and stuff, but those were the ones I saw like on Broadway in New York. The coolest thing for me was, and it's a little cliche now because I'm kind of tired of the Phantom. I feel like it gets overused. But there's a scene where the Phantom, like the lights, like a big chandelier thing comes down over the audience and like freaks out when the like, you know, kind of like type thing happens. And like the chandelier went all over the arena and like cracked and like lightning bolts came out of it. And whoever made that effect, that was super cool. That was probably my favorite I've seen. And I've talked about, I met Link, the guy who played Link was Ashley Parker Angel from Ozone or O-Town or whatever they were when I was little. And I thought that was super cool. But And then I Googled that on the episode if his name was really Ashley Parker Angel. And Tim's like, I'm sure it's not Joy, and it wasn't. But anyway.
Well, I saw Wicked when it was on Broadway, but I mean, I've seen, lots of productions in London's West End.
Well, you happen to live right by it, Tim.
Well, that's true. You'd get on the Piccadilly line, get on at Hounslow Central, and then you would get off at Piccadilly Circus, and boom, you were there. Actually, Tottenham Court Road is where you get off for that.
Fair enough. I mean, I wouldn't have known any different, but I'll take your word for it.
There you go. Fantastic. All right. Well, let's move on to another song from the list, the No Glee list. And we're going to go with Foreigner and Jukebox Hero.
Oh. Okay, I remember in the episode where they did it, and of course that's where my brain's going. So, Foreigner, I feel like this is one of those songs that everybody doesn't associate with Foreigner or knows it's Foreigner. I feel like Jukebox Hero gets associated with like Journey or something a lot more than it does Foreigner. I don't think people know the songs go together. Yeah,
I think so. I mean, maybe it sounds a little unconventional to the rest of the Foreigner catalog. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I see where you're coming from with that. I could see how your casual music fan might think it's not Foreigner.
Because, I mean, your casual music fan, what's the first thing they're going to think of when they think of Foreigner? They're going to think hot-blooded, check it,
Mm-hmm.
But they're not going to think Jukebox Hero. Now, when I think of Jukebox Hero, I think of it was in Hot Tub Time Machine, and I don't know why, but that always comes to my brain, the movie. But then my brain links to Foreigner, and when I think of Foreigner, I still think of the time me and Tim were singing I Got a Temperature of 103 on a bus, and then somebody at our work may have been diagnosed with COVID.
Yeah, we Joy and I set out with a director. Let me just tell you, with a director.
It's been long enough now, and they don't work there anymore.
Yeah, to make a training video of something. And where we worked, used to have a division that had buses. So we rented this bus, got the bus driver to drive us, and we drove to Giles County. And we filmed some footage in Giles County. And we were coming back on this bus singing Hot Blooded. And it was great. And then we broke for lunch, and we was in McAdoo's, and then a phone call comes through. And this is at the very beginning of the COVIDs. And it was like the first COVID case in the building.
And everything
nobody knew
shut
what was
down.
going on. Yeah, nobody knew what to expect. They shut the whole building down, had to get everyone ready for work from home. And it was, half an hour previous, we were singing Hot Blooded, Check It and See, I Got a Fever of 103.
And of course, me and Tim are like leading the way because it's music. So I'm like screaming it, and Tim's over there just getting it on the guitar. We're just like Hot Blooded, and then like 5 minutes later, it's like, oh, maybe that song wasn't in good fashion. To be fair, this was the very start of COVID, the pandemic, everything. This was before the lockdown. We weren't quite expecting that yet.
Exactly. We didn't know what to expect. We didn't know what was going on. But yeah, things got shut down very quickly. It
was just really funny, though, because we were all sitting in McAdoo's, and we were supposed to go back out and record more. And we all looked at each other and went, we probably shouldn't get back on a bus that close to each other. And everybody's like, no, we should go back. And we're like, okay. And we just kind of finished our food and went back. I do remember that's when Tim taught everybody that his favorite thing at McAdoo's is the taco salad.
There you are. So I'm glad that Foreigner and the McAdoo's taco salad are forever linked in your brain.
Every time I hear Foreigner, that's what I think of. I don't know why, but it's just so funny that of all the songs, I don't even know how we got on that one. Anyway, what's my next non-gleeful song?
Okay, so this would be from Madonna, and this is Vogue.
Oh, man, that episode on Glee was so good, though.
No Glee story.
Darn it.
Where does your brain go when you hear Vogue?
I just think of the music video and people voguing. So I remember I went down a rabbit hole of the whole thing about moving the hands around the face is the Vogue move or whatever. Mm-hmm. I wanted to see if people were actually doing that in clubs back in the day. They were. I went down a YouTube rabbit hole. If you go through and see, if that song comes on, there were literally people doing the Vogue hands around their face, striking a pose. So when I think of Glee, I'm trying to think of Glee. When I think of Vogue, I think of the dance.
Yeah, because I mean, certainly when this came out in 1990, I was not going to clubs and just sitting up in my bedroom playing guitar, watching MTV or something like that. And I didn't know it was as big a movement as Madonna made out, because it's something that you would read in a newspaper or read in a copy of Smash Hits magazine, but it's certainly not. You didn't think it was a thing.
Yeah, I didn't. And so I went through and I Googled like people who have footage, and there were people doing it. I will say it tended to be more of like the LGBTQ plus club, which would be where you probably see a lot of Madonna and stuff. But it was like some actual footage from the 90s. If you have some time on YouTube, it was interesting to see, because I kind of just assumed it was fake or, hype.
Vogue. Yeah. Yeah. Well, there we are. See, once again, we're educating our listeners that voguing was a thing.
I mean, and then obviously I think of the music video, because the music video was iconic with the black and white and the different people in it and stuff like that. But yeah, I think of voguing when I think of Vogue.
There we are, as you should.
Do you wonder if she had to buy the right? So is Vogue a word of itself, or is it just the name of a magazine?
It's a word, because something would be in vogue.
Oh, okay, yeah. Okay, now I see what you're saying. Never mind. Moving along. I knew that.
I don't think it's possible to trademark like a word like that, but I think it's possible to trademark a logo.
Yeah. So like the Vogue logo on the magazine in the big bold letters. The reason there was a YouTube channel, and they were called the React channel because they reacted to different things, and they tried to trademark the word React and they wouldn't let them.
Yeah, well, that's why the Monkees was spelled Monkees.
Yeah.
Because it was a wacky spelling, they was able to trademark it.
Smart. So then, but I guess the Beatles, because it's the Beatles. Maybe it's the logo.
It's not. It's spelled BEAT as in beat.
Yeah, Beatles is BEET. Okay.
Yeah. Because they were called the Beatles because at the time a pop band was known as a beat combo. They'd say a popular beat combo.
Oh yeah,
so they are the
I've heard that before.
That's where the name comes from.
Okay, that makes sense. All right, next song, please.
Next song. Okay, so this is, where are we? This is from I think this is 2017, if my date in my library is correct.
Okay.
And this is from LMFAO. And this is Sexy and I Know It.
Okay, so this song is one of those songs that, first of all, Charlie loves. It doesn't surprise anyone who's heard this song. But this song was popular my senior year. What year was that? So I graduated in 2012. Okay, so I'm thinking of the Shot song. I associate LMFAO with the Shot song, but this song was popular when I was kind of still in my going to bars and clubs and that kind of thing. And LMFAO is one of those bands that gets people hyped. And I distinctly remember this song playing. I think I was at Tots in Blacksburg, and this song came on, and there was a group of, I'm just going to say it, what looked like frat boys, kind of. If you don't know what a frat boy is, if you're in a different country, think like sororities. I don't know how much you guys know. What's the equivalent? Is there an equivalent, Tim, I can make?
Not really.
Just classic looking college kids who drink a lot.
And all sort of dress the same. They all wear like collared shirts and grey trousers and boating shoes. Yeah.
It's always the boating shoes. So if you don't know, Google frat boy in America and you'll see a picture of what me and Tim were talking about. This song would come on and they would go crazy, and it would be like, but it wouldn't be like fun for anybody else in the room, because they would do like kind of like, have you ever seen where certain people like go crazy in a bar and they like kind of take over the whole space and they're jumping around and it's just too much? That's what I think of when I think of this song. But I distinctly remember that happening at Tots, and one of the guys was kind of like flinging his arms and he hit another guy in the face and broke the poor guy's glasses.
Oh dear.
And so that's what I think of when I think of that song. There you go.
Where is Tots?
So it's top of the stairs. Have you ever seen? Okay. So when you're in Blacksburg, I'm trying to think of what's near it. Do you know where the Lyric is?
Yeah.
So you know the little street that the Lyric's at with Gillies down there. And then if you go like kind of towards where all those parking lots are, and I think the Cellar's over there.
Oh, yeah. the back there, up the stairs.
That's so top of the stairs. Top stands for top of the stairs. And they also have Bots, which is bottom of the stairs, which is just a restaurant. But if you go up the stairs to Tots, it's probably the most kind of like dance karaoke, biggest bar kind of situation that you'll find in Blacksburg. And it has this drink that I would never drink in 1,000 years now because of PTSD. It's called a rail. And it has like 9. It's basically, like Long Island iced tea or Blue Helicopter or all those drinks where they put every alcohol you've ever heard mixed in it and wish for a good time. Yeah, it's their version of that. So they sell them for really cheap. So college kids love it. So even though I was out of college, that's why I was trying to figure out what year it was. I was like, I graduated in 2012, so 2017. It attracts people like all the college kids because it's $6. And so you get enough of those in you, and then frat boys start jumping around to LFMAO and they punch each other in the face. Yeah.
Okay. Well, there we are. Well, I'm glad we went down that path.
I think it took me a long way to get to the point of that story. I had to do math and figure out what year it was.
It's too much.
Anyway, all right.
Okay, all right. Well, let's try this one. Let's see what memories this one invokes. So this is from 2009. This is Train, and it's Hey Soul Sister.
Train, all I ever think about when I think of Train is, what's the lead singer's name?
Pat Monahan. His
facial expression and his eyebrows and the way he performs. Have you ever seen the video to Hey Soul Sister, Tim?
I don't think I have. I've seen the video to Drops of Jupiter, but I don't think I've seen that.
So you've seen him perform, though. He's so, I don't even know how to explain it. If you've never seen him, in his music videos and stuff, he's just so over the top.
Yeah.
I don't know how to explain it.
Yeah, when he sings, his vocal movements of his mouth, they're very over-exaggerated.
Yes, and he's so almost comical, and he's got very intense eyebrows and always has his hair kind of very intensely. And he's it's almost like he's screaming at the camera, "Hey, Soul Sister!" So when I think of Train, that's all I think of.
Yeah, I have a live album that I got in a thrift shop of Train. I mean, I like a couple of their songs. I never thought much of them, and it was 50 cents, so I bought it. And it's fair to say that would have been a great show to go to. Yeah. It was the energy on the recording was amazing. They did a couple of covers. I don't know. It was just a really good album.
I imagine his energy is very high, and I think that's what comes through when you're looking at these music videos, because he seems very eccentric and almost intense. And I don't know that it translates as well on camera as it probably would on stage. So anyway, so if you've never watched a Train music video, please go out and watch the music video to Hey Soul Sister. That's my advice.
There you go. That's Joy's tip of the week. To bring back an old segment we haven't done for a while. Okay. All right. Well, let's go for this one from 1998. Okay. This is the band Hole, and the song is Celebrity Skin.
Oh, God. I can't think of Hole without just thinking of that stupid concert. The one with the guitar.
Well, and in fact, the one that you're thinking of, the video that's widely circulated is the song Celebrity Skin. So if you don't know this story...
I'll let Tim tell the story. It's his story.
Yeah. So Hole were performing live somewhere, and I think either the band didn't pay the sound engineer or was very rude to the sound engineer or made the sound engineer unhappy somehow. And, I don't think too much about them, but I mean, I've seen videos of them perform. They're fine. I mean, for some people, I'm sure Hole are their favorite band, and that's cool. But I mean, all of them seem to be able to play, and they've written songs. And Courtney Love isn't the greatest singer in the world, but it's fine, if that's your thing. However, one thing Courtney Love isn't is a good guitar player.
Yeah, we can say that, just honestly.
Yeah, I mean, she's a poor guitar player. I mean, she's not known for being a guitar player. She's been known as a singer and a songwriter and a performer.
Which is weird because she says she wanted to be known as a guitar player, so it's very strange.
Yeah, so what this sound engineer did, because he got stiffed by the band or stiffed by the management or something like that, he published to YouTube a video of that song, Celebrity Skin, and it has Courtney Love's isolated vocal and isolated guitar track on it.
Yeah.
And it is rough. And I mean, because the amplifiers were mic'd, You can hear a little bit of bleed from the rest of the band just through the back of the mic that's on the amp. But yeah, I would say, Courtney, stick to writing songs, being a passionate performer and singer. I wouldn't do the guitar thing.
So when I hear it, if you've never played Guitar Hero, I don't know if you've ever played Guitar Hero or seen someone play it, Tim, but when you're playing, if you miss notes, it like makes like weird noises in the guitar and like the people start booing. I'm sorry, but her guitar playing sounds just about like whatever. I'm trying to play a hard song on Guitar Hero, and so every other note's like long.
Yeah, it's like she's got the rhythm of it almost, but like where her fingers are with her left hand is arbitrary. And I mean, to some extent, it doesn't matter. Because you saw Elvis always had a guitar. Was it even plugged in? Did it matter? It's the visual. It's the, you being a rock star. When you have a guitar around your neck, you're part of the band. But, if you're for somebody who's gone on record and said that they wanted to be a guitar player or has said they're a great guitar player, and then you listen to that isolated track, it's
like me saying, oh, yeah, I was such a good drummer back in the day. No, I wasn't. Not even a little bit. But I think the reason that I'm willing to maybe speak a little bit negatively is because it's one of those, like, the way you treat your crew or the way you treat the sound people or the way you treat, you know what I mean, someone who's working with you like that. If you treat those people poorly, you get what you get.
Absolutely. There's a famous Henry Rollins quote about treating the crew. And in fact, I'm going to Goog this right now. I'm going to give it a Goog. Where are we?
Live on air, everybody.
Henry Rollins crew. Let me see if I can find this. It's a famous quote. Okay, so this is what Henry Rollins, I'm a big fan of Henry Rollins, but this is what Henry Rollins says. He says, listen to the stage manager and get on stage when they tell you. No one has time for your rock star BS. None of the techs backstage care if you're David Bowie or the Milkman. When you act like a jerk, they are completely unimpressed with your infantile display that you might think comes with your dubious status. They were there hours before you building the stage, and they'll be there hours after you leave tearing it down. They should get your salary, and you should get theirs.
Yay!
Yeah,
See, that's exactly how I feel.
Yeah, always look after your crew. I mean, that's like with Adele in Vegas. Like, she had this thing supposed to be at Caesar's Palace and basically blamed the whole crew for it. And my understanding is it wasn't an issue with the crew.
See, and you need them more than they need you. A crew can work for almost any artist. Their skills are interchangeable. But as an artist, you need crew that's willing to work with you. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, it's kind of like, it's like shooting yourself in the foot. And so it's just silly. It kind of goes down to, I always say there's like a couple of ways you can tell if I like this person, if I'm going to like this person, if we're going to be friends, if I think they're a good person. One is if they put their shopping cart back. If you leave your shopping cart in the random part of the store, grocery, I don't care what your reasoning are. I don't care what happened. If you just do it just to do it and make somebody who works in that grocery store for minimum wage have to go all the way to the end of the parking lot to get that grocery cart, no. Also, how you treat your wait staff at a restaurant will tell me everything I need to know.
Yeah, well, like in our office, we have people that come around and empty all the dustbins and sweep and mop.
Do stuff I don't want to do.
Yeah, janitorial services. And in fact, I was having this conversation with someone the other day about you can tell a lot about a person about the way that they treat those people. I always treat those people with respect, and they're doing a good job like anyone. Mm-hmm. But so I think some people don't, and that does say a lot about people.
There you go. There's me and Tim's life advice. And if you are one of those people, change it.
Exactly. There we go. Okay. All right. Let's pull another song that comes from the Glee playlist that you're not allowed to talk about Glee. So let's go with The Knack and My Sharona.
I always think of the stupid My Corona when the COVID virus hit. Do you remember that, Tim? Did you
it?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, wasn't it a Weird Al parody?
Was
My
it? Did he do a
Corona?
version of it? But
I think so.
okay.
I think that was long before the COVID's kicked off.
When COVID happened, though, people started playing it, like ironically, because of My Corona, because it was called the Corona. Everybody was calling it the coronavirus when it first hit. Before we kind of clarified it's COVID-19 and da 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 da. And so I think of My Corona when I think of My Sharona, and I think about right at the beginning of the pandemic when everybody was sharing. So there you go. And what I don't know. It probably is. I can't believe this. Charlie would be very disappointed in me in not realizing that was a Weird Al song.
I think it is. I think My Corona is a Weird Al song.
I mean, it'd be smart. If it isn't, it should be.
Well, there are some parodies like that.
Yeah.
When you hear them and you think, oh, that should be a Weird Al song. And then you find out it's not. And you're like, oh, okay. And it turns out some radio DJ has made a parody for or something. And it's just not as good.
I wonder why we stopped calling it. Was there a reason why? I mean, there's got to be a technical reason why we went from coronavirus to COVID-19.
Well, the kind of virus it is a coronavirus. The common cold is a coronavirus.
Yeah,
I think influenza in some forms is a coronavirus, but the particular strain is COVID-19.
And then it has substrains of that.
Yeah.
Interesting. I just don't know why whenever it first, maybe because people just didn't have a really good official name for it yet because it was so unknown. So they're just going with corona.
Originally described that, it was a coronavirus, much like other coronaviruses.
Which that's why whenever it first started and people would be like, yeah, if you look on the back of your Lysol wipes, it says kills the coronavirus, but it's not a COVID-19 because it was the other versions of corona we've had around for a long time.
Yeah.
There you go, everybody. We just solved the mystery. I mean, I guess I knew that, but I never really put thoughts to it. But when I hear that, the other thing is I find it weird that the band's name is The Knack. What do they have a knack for? Music?
They have a knack for writing catchy songs.
I don't know. And the first time I remember I heard somebody say the band's name was The Knack. I'm like, really? I don't know why. That always just stands out to me as strange.
Well, I tell you, 1979 was a great year for naming bands.
If you know, I wonder if there's if anyone out there knows a reason, just send me a message because now I'm generally curious if anyone knows why it's called the Knack. I could Google it, but if our listeners know, I'll let them tell me first.
There we are. Don't force Joy to give it a Google.
All right, what's our next song?
Okay, so this is from 1985. This is Tears for Fears and Everybody Wants to Rule the World from the album Songs from the Big Chair.
I mean, I'm very familiar with the song. I'm trying to think of something that I think of when I think of this song, and I'm not thinking of anything. Literally nothing.
You literally have nothing on this piece of 80s power pop.
It's true. I mean, I have nothing. I'm blank, Tim. Do you have a story? Nothing. I mean, I know the song, but I can't think of anything related to it.
Well, I know. I have a couple of things. One,
maybe you'll jog my memory.
They made a charity version called "Everybody Wants to Run the World." There was some charity something or other appeal. There's probably some kind of world disaster, and they came up with a thing called "Everybody Wants to Run the World," and it had them all running in the video. I do remember that. And I also have always long been of the opinion, whoever it's Roland Osborne or the other one, I can't remember.
Yeah.
Looks exactly like Ian Husbands.
Oh, see, I think Ian Husband looks like the guy who wrote Hamilton. Have you ever seen
I think you've mentioned that before.
Yeah, I think he looks like the guy who wrote Hamilton. Oh, what is his name? Why can't I think of it? Hold on. I'm going to have to look that one up because that's going to annoy me. Hamilton, Lin-Manuel Miranda. Mm-hmm. That's who I think Ian Husbands looks like. So now I need to Google a picture of who you're talking about and see if he looks like Will Miranda. And Ian Husbands looks like everybody.
Yeah, it's only like the 80s version of the dude in Tears for Fears.
Let's see. I'm looking. Let's see. Tears for Fears. I'm sure an 80s picture will come up because that was the height of their
like the album cover of Songs from the Big Chair.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I kind of see it. Okay, I see what you're going for here, Tim. It does kind of look like Ian Husband in the face.
Exactly. Now, for our listeners who've never met Ian Husbands or never seen Ian Husbands,
no clue what
let me tell you, he looks a little bit like the man from Tears for Fears.
And a little bit like Lin-Manuel Miranda. Because the first time I've only met Ian via Zoom, obviously, for those who don't know, he's in the UK. But the first time I saw him, I think it's also the hair that really makes him look like that to me, though.
Mm-hmm.
It's the hair.
Yeah, I have to commend Ian for his hair because I've known him 25 years, 30 years maybe. I've known him for a long time. And he's always had long curly hair, and he always will have long curly hair. And I've never known him with short hair. I'm assuming at some point in his life he had short hair, but it has to be commended that the hair is there to stay.
The more I look at it, the more I see it, Tim. It's the eyes.
Mm-hmm.
It's the eyes. It does look like Ian. Maybe Ian's like reincarnated a bunch or something. I don't know.
Well, I'm pleased to say that Ian is still with us, and I want him to be with us for a long time. So I don't know how that works.
I don't know. I'm not an expert on reincarnation, but now I'm generally okay. Now I want to look up Lin-Manuel Miranda. Hold on.
I tell you that this is top content for an audio only podcast.
It's also the eyes. It's the eyes and the hair. There we go. There. Because everybody's like, cool, I can't see a picture of anything you two are talking about, but I guess I'll Google it myself.
Yeah, which would be fine if you're driving or something.
The normal things people do when they listen to a podcast. All right.
Exactly. Okay. All right. Well, let's find you another song. So this is, where are we? From 20, I think it could be 2017, though the date may be off on my collection. I don't know. But this is Ariana Grande and the song Problem featuring Iggy Azalea.
So I'm going to say something Tim's going to have no clue about, but that's all right. Maybe the internet will know. So that song goes like, I got one less problem. That's how it goes, Tim, just so you know. And then there's a singer on it, and she's like, Iggy, that's the background singer. She just like disappeared. So Iggy Azalea was popular for like 4 songs, and then the internet just like disappeared off the planet. And I still have her on social media, but like she doesn't put music out anymore. She doesn't do anything. But for like she did this song called Fancy, and she did that song, and then she did a song with Britney Spears where they're driving in a pink Barbie car and they're aliens is all I remember. That really did happen, actually.
Okay.
We need to find a picture of the pink Barbie car and the aliens for Instagram, Tim. Write that down. But okay. But she did like 5 songs, was a massive success, and then just disappeared.
Did you find a calling in something outside of music? Did she go into social care? Did she become a doctor or a police officer or something? I don't know.
She's more like a modeler kind of influencer, makes her money off of social media now. I'm not really sure what she does. I do think she has a child now, so maybe that contributes, having a family. But like, it's just like people loved her for like 5 minutes, and now she's like someone that people kind of make fun of and stuff, and I don't know why. Like, maybe there's some big conspiracy out there I'm not privy to, but it's just weird because she did like 5 songs within like 2017, so I think you're probably right about there. And then she just vanished. And she's from like New Zealand. I remember that. That's all I remember about her.
See, I didn't know that. I didn't know that she was from New Zealand. I thought I always associate Flight the Conchords from New Zealand.
That's the only reference he's got, everybody.
or the Bushwhackers, the WWF tag team, the Bushwhackers. They're from New Zealand.
I mean, to be fair, I don't really have any. I know this sounds bad, but I just think New Zealand's the country by Australia. That's all I think. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe I should learn more about New Zealand. I honestly, I don't know. I mean, I know a lot about Australia, but New Zealand is for me, it's Flight the Conchords and the Bushwhackers. And didn't they make like films there or something?
Or maybe she's from Australia. Maybe she's not even from New Zealand. Maybe it's Australia.
You need to get that right, because much like how
people will come for me.
Yeah, much like how Canadians don't like being called Americans and vice versa. Australians and New Zealanders, it's a completely different country and a completely different culture.
She's from Australia.
Joy.
I really thought it was New Zealand. I'm sorry.
Oh dear.
Don't come for me, internet. I fixed my mistake. Oh man, I really messed that one up. No, I Googled it. She's from Australia. My bad. I thought it was New Zealand. See, this is just more proof, Tim, that we really need to learn more about New Zealand as a whole.
There we go. We'll do a New Zealand episode or something. I don't know.
Are there like a lot of good bands that come out of New Zealand?
I've no idea. I mean, as I said, all I know is Flight of the Conchords.
I'm just making us look worse. What's the next thing?
Okay, so this is from 1986 from the Top Gun soundtrack, Kenny Loggins and Danger Zone.
I mean, you named the first thing that comes to mind, and it's Top Gun. But you know what's interesting about Kenny Loggins, and this is what I think about him, he's done a lot of music for movies that have become massive successes.
Oh, absolutely. I mean,
Like
I think he's more of an accomplished songwriter and like scorer of films than he is as a performer. But Kenny Loggins, he was at Live Aid. Did you know that he performed?
No.
He performed Footloose at Live Aid.
I mean, when I think of him, I think of Footloose. That's the first one, big album. Mm-hmm. Then he did that one, I'm All Right for Caddyshack. And and then, of course, Danger Zone. And then there's like that Meet Me Halfway, which might have been from a movie. I'm not sure. But he like produces great songs that seem to be really cinematic. He's also a guitarist, right? He plays the guitar. I don't know if he's a good guitarist, but I do know he plays the guitar. But when I think of Kenny Loggins, I just think of somebody who's wrote a lot of songs for a lot of movies.
Yeah, and he also performed with Jim Messina. They had a duo called Loggins and Messina for many years,
which we talked about on one of my episodes. Remember, I didn't know they existed. In one of the episodes, a previous episode, I brought them up, and they had been behind the song "Your Mama Don't Dance and Your Daddy Don't Rock and Roll."
That's correct. Yeah,
that was their first.
Yeah, because everyone associates that with Poison.
Yeah, and he says Kenny Loggins. Okay, I'm remembering the episode I talked about. I think it was like a duo. I don't even remember what the topic was, Tim, that I brought this up on, but it was my episode, and I wasn't super familiar with them. And Tim's like, yeah, Loggins and Messina, and their Mama Don't Dance and Your Daddy Don't Rock and Roll. He said that he literally wrote that song because his mom loved music, loved dancing, but his dad was kind of the opposite, very conservative, shoestring, drank a little bit more than he should have kind of dad. And so he kind of like held his mom back and wouldn't let her dance. And that was it's very sad, but that's what he said he wrote the song for.
Well, there you go. See, more rock and roll stories coming to you from the No Name Music Cast.
I knew that, but I didn't know Iggy Azalea was from Australia. Anyway.
Well, I tell you what, let's do a couple more. So let's go with this one. This is Devo and Whip It.
Tim, you know what I'm going to say. That stupid episode where we played the game and you were like, you said something about traffic cones. And I thought that Devo was wearing traffic cones on their head in the music video. But it turns out they're like flower pots. Yeah. I don't remember what it was. It was another episode where me and Tim were playing a game. It might have been the episode that didn't even make it to air. I don't know. But Tim was like, the word was traffic. And I was like, traffic cones. And Tim's like, okay. And I said, Devo, whip it. And he looked at me like, what are you talking about? I was like, don't they have traffic cones on their head? And Tim was like, no, they don't. I had to go back and Google it.
Yeah, it's not like the scene from Alan Partridge where Michael has a traffic cone on his head. No. He just wants to go off somewhere.
Tim's ability for Alan Partridge references does match my ability to find a Glee reference and everything.
Do you know what was funny the other day? We was out on the road and there was, I think it was a car or a truck or something. And it had a Spider-Man decal on it, or a Spider-Man something. It's a big Spider-Man. It was on the side of a truck or a car. And Hannah said to me, "Oh, look, it's Spider-Man." And I said, "Oh, well, as in Spider-Man the boxer in the season 4 Knight Rider episode of Redemption of the Champion." And she's like, "The fact that your brain went to a Knight Rider episode, not to like Marvel cartoons, is weird." And I said, "I know." I said, "How long have you known me?"
Well, to be fair, when I think of that now, I think of the Simpsons movie when they did the Spider Pig, and he's got the pig going across. Did you ever see that, Tim? In the Simpsons movie, you know how like Spider-Man like goes across the roof or whatever? There was a trailer for the Simpsons movie, and Homer has a pig, and it's in a Spider-Man costume, and he's walking the pig across the roof like it's a Spider-Man, and he's going Spider Pig, because whatever a Spider Pig does. So that's what I think.
Yeah, I watched the first season of The Simpsons, maybe the second, but the problem for me is it references a lot of pop culture references that just go completely above my head.
I mean, to be fair, I don't even know if I actually watched the movie. I just remember that part of the trailer. I might have, but if it did, it didn't really stick with me. But yeah, that's where my brain goes when I hear Spider-Man.
There you go. As I said, I think of the season 4 Knight Rider episode with the boxer Spider-Man.
Yeah, we're interesting people. All right.
All right. Well, let's do one last one before we wrap up this Joy is No Glee game. Okay. So let's go with here we are. From 1987, this is U2, and I still haven't found what I'm looking for.
Well, the first thing my brain thought was, I wonder if he ever found what he was looking for. Because he said 1982. I don't know. I always just feel like U2 is one of those bands, when I think of them as a whole. I know their music's great. I know they're wonderful as people, but I kind of forget about them. I don't know why.
Yeah, I mean, they're the kind of band that will do a massive world tour, and they'll be spoken about a lot. And I think you're right. There are a lot of big U2 fans, but maybe if they're not in the public eye, maybe you're not thinking about U2.
Yeah, and I feel like when people think of U2, they just think of Bono, and they think about his philanthropy and all that stuff. You know, that's kind of what people think of when they think of U2. But I don't know why, but the music doesn't really, it's not the first thing that comes to mind. It's more of that work. And maybe that's on purpose. Maybe they cultivated that because they want their charity work and their philanthropy and all that stuff to be really important. I don't know. That's what I think of.
There we are. When I think of U2, I think of the season 2 I'm Alan Partridge episode where,
of course,
where Alan supposedly introduces his Ukrainian girlfriend to Bono, but it's not. It's someone from Lynn's church, and he's wearing Lynn's mother's cataract glasses. And he says, how's the Edge? He says, the Edge is fine. How's Adam Clayton? Adam Clayton's fine. And he says, how's the drummer? And he went, yeah, the drummer is fine. And I apologize for that poor Irish accent. I do apologize to our listeners, but you have to see the scene. It is absolutely hilarious.
I mean, I appreciate that the person just went along with it. They're like, yeah, they're fine. Don't know what you're talking about, but sure. Yeah. So is it an American thing, or does it seem to be? Because, I mean, they're from Dublin originally, right? You two?
I think so, yeah.
Okay. So it's his philanthropy. Is Bono synonymous with like his philanthropy work in the UK, and that's kind of what people think of? Or is that an American thing?
I think it's an American thing. I think in the UK, he's just thought of being completely full of himself.
Well, no, I will say, when I'm saying this, it's almost like a stereotype of somebody who's like cultivated this, I'm so great, I do all these things for the world kind of thing. So I feel like in America, that is kind of how it goes too.
Yeah, I think Bono does do some great work, and he donates a lot of his wealth, and he's out trying to do the right thing, but certainly in UK culture, it's just a lot of people just think he's just completely full of himself.
I will say there's two other things I think of when I think of him. I think of that one song where he says, it's like the uno, and he says cinco twice. He says 5 in Spanish twice. I think it's the Vertigo song.
Yeah, it's Vertigo.
I think of that. For some reason, I always hated the fact that he said it twice. It drives me insane. And I was like, I would always turn it off at that point. And then there was a U2 song that was originally on, I guess the original iPhones was like the default album. It was a U2 album. And people who had the original iPhone said they never want to hear it again because it was always at the top of their playlist for some reason before like shuffle was an option or whatever. And so they got stuck hearing the same song every time they would listen to music.
Yeah, what happened is that it was a very unique way of releasing music. But before streaming or anything like that, it was a time when people were purchasing songs from the iTunes Music Store, and there was some kind of iPod or new iPhone or some Apple device that came out, and U2 were part of the launch. And as part of the promotion for the launch, is that U2 or Apple put their brand new, not even heard album into everyone's iTunes library. So when you signed in, it was there. And I think if you sign into iTunes, it's still there. There is a way of getting rid of it. There was actually a support article where you could run something and it would remove it. But yeah, people hated the fact they got free music from YouTube.
And people said it ruined it for them because I don't know why it was. I don't know if it started with an A or if it's because it was you. And like, I don't know. But they said it was like every time they would go to start music before, like it was an option to kind of, if they didn't select what was going to play, it was always the YouTube song that started.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. That was my non-Glee episode. And for people who are listening and don't know that we're talking about a TV show, they're like, Tim really doesn't want her to be happy because he kept saying, here's your non-Glee song.
Well, I was thinking it as a challenge. You know, it wasn't criticizing the fact that a lot of your references are Glee. It's because it's something you love, and that's fine because a lot of my references are Knight Rider and Alan Partridge. But I was just thinking, you could think outside of the box by referencing songs you'd seen many times in Glee and then seeing where the tales took you.
I think I was successful besides Tears for Fears. I had nothing. I mean, I know what it is, but I'm like, it's a song. They have words. All right, Tim, what's your advice for the people?
Just be extra kind to everybody you meet.
Bye.
See you later. Bye-bye.
To remind me of another day to come.